What is happening, friends? Thank you for coming to hang with me. I can't get over sometimes how crazy of a world that we live in. I just feel so happy and weirdly grateful today. I do a lot. I write a lot about things that I'm grateful for. In the morning, especially, I find it's a great thing. But like, what a crazy world we live in. You can literally talk to people this is my studio in my home, and you get to hang out and chat about whatever. And yeah, it's just the coolest thing. Not every Thursday, but many Thursdays, I am coming on live here. My YouTube channel grew a lot in 2017 when I first started doing live podcasts and stuff. I worked a job at Fight Network in Toronto, and when it ended, the next day I started my YouTube channel. And Joe Rogan tweeted it out, which is incredibly kind. He's done a lot of kind things for me. Lots of people did. And it grew kind of quickly. And then my socials, Instagram and TikTok and all that kind of stuff, my short form stuff started doing so well that I kind of got away from YouTube for a couple of years. I was able to make some pretty good money and do some really fun things building short form stuff. So it's back to doing long form things. Most Tuesdays I have a new show. And then on Thursdays, I try to do live. But man, it's so crazy. Like, I was typing out some things and I'm like, you can do whatever you want. Like, we live in a world where you can start all types of platforms in which you can share ideas. I like to talk about martial arts because that's my passion, is what I've dedicated a lot of my life to, my adult life. I had a bunch of pro MMA fights in my late 30s and early 40s, which is crazy. But I kind of learn about life through martial arts. That is the gist these days. I get a little bored doing a lot of the same things. What's going to happen when these two guys fight? There's definitely a place for that. And I'm paid to do that on a lot of live shows. And it's really fun when I'm there. But when I get to do things myself, I like to just hang. I don't need to make any money off this. My business is really good. So I can just chat, and there's this incredible freedom in that. But yes, the root of it often is I'm trying to learn about the world through studying martial arts. I'm looking and look at this. How's it going, Mighty Joe Nolan? Rest in peace, Fight Network days. Yeah, we did some really cool stuff back then. But hey, man, it led me to here where I can hang out and just chat. So super honest. That's how I'm liking to make things today, talk about martial arts and life and philosophy and whatever. The more honest, the better, ongoing. So I want to talk to you about something. If you clicked on my thumbnail, it says UFC, bare knuckle is greater than UFC. That's what the thumbnail will have said that you've seen. It might even be wherever you're watching. There's people watching on lots of different platforms outside of YouTube. So I might say that in the headline. What's that about? That's actually strategy, right? When we study fighting, martial arts, we understand strategy. We might, want to destabilize our opponent. We might want to get inside of his head. We might want to distract him. We might want to get him angry. This is happening all over. We are going to talk about martial arts, but there was something when I was making this thumbnail and when I was titling these things. I thought, okay, I'm doing this, but I don't want to tell people about it because that's the honest approach. And then I thought, well, they'll give you insight. When you get mad at a Jake Paul thing and you're button mashing, a lot of these things are created to cause an emotional response in us. If I wrote, bare knuckle is great, and I don't know about MMA, and something's changing, that doesn't do it. You people all day long, this is happening in politics and in news and in fighting and in football, all day long, people are trying to push our buttons, right? And they succeed. We're living in a very intense world right now, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. All day long, people are in our things. People are trying to get us to respond to things, emotionally engage with them, whatever. And the easiest way to do it is, really the easiest way is conflict and controversy. If you can create a beef with somebody, now, some people actually really get upset and do create, emotional engagement with people. And some people use it as a tool. I think some of the best out there, like the Jake Pauls of the world and these people who are very famous, who always have conflict, they're good at it. I mean, Dana White is a very intelligent human being. And Jake Paul was able to get him going for like 2 years. Only recently has been like, I've actually stopped paying attention to that guy, and you believe him, and it's the strategy. It's a really good strategy. But when you can get really pro level guys like that going, Chael Sonnen, master, right? Master. But people are doing this all the time. And so I was like, when I was making that thumbnail, bare knuckle is greater than UFC. I do want to talk about bare knuckle. I do want to talk about variation. It carries over to if you like movies, it carries over if you like music. These things, food, you know, these things are happening in the world. But yeah, when I went to do it, I was like, well, the job, if you want people to watch, you want to stimulate a little bit of a response. And that's why most thumbnails that you see all over YouTube are purposefully trying to create engagement with you, often by either starting a question or making you disagree with something. And then this is happening all day long as we're scrolling. So it's something to really be aware of. If we take it to martial arts, when you're fighting, Connor, of course, many great examples, Muhammad Ali, you know, people who can get you upset, get you emotional. Jose Aldo was overly aggressive. That those 7 seconds or whatever it was the same thing as the thumbnail or the provocation in your social media. This is happening all day, and that's okay. When learning about it takes away some of its sizzle. Learning about what people are doing to you, what businesses are attempting to do to you as you're consuming information all day, actually takes away some of its bite and allows you to do it in whatever way you're comfortable with for your own business. You have a gardening business, well, you don't want to start creating Twitter beefs with people, but there's something in this lesson that can help you, and you can find your own way to do it. Like I said, for me, I'm testing it, but when I do, I want to draw people's attention to it and say, this is what's happening. This is why this is happening. This is what we can learn from this. And this is how you might be able to apply it. And ultimately, when I get the absolute freedom of being able to just sit here and chat, and share ideas, share the things that I've learned, those are the things I'm interested in, which kind of takes us to kind of the thing. So again, thumbnail, bare knuckle, greater than UFC. Good for the algorithm, good to provoke the stuff. But the truth is it better? This is personal taste, right? A lot of the time, we are arguing with people about things that are not objective, they're subjective. There was one I just saw the other day, and I responded to it, and I said, what the heck? I responded to it, and I said, this thing is subjective. Is this person better than this person? Or, what do you like better, this or this? If you and I disagree on what's better, peanut butter or chocolate, our taste buds are actually different. They're actually different. We cannot just fairly discuss whether peanut butter is better or chocolate is better. And that goes for John Jones or Francis Ngannou as well. We are not seeing the same thing. We are literally the vision through which we use is different. We see different pieces and moments and clips. We see our knowledge base is different. Where are you getting your information? Because if you are really heavily consuming the narratives and the marketing of the company that's making the statement, and of course, say in John Jones versus Francis Ngannou, who's better? If you watch the UFC all the time, you will be pretty sure it's John Jones. If you watch it with the sound off over many years while studying martial arts and consume things in a different way, you might have a different opinion. Our opinions is often created through our personal taste, but they're often also created through the information we're given. And that's partly why, at the root of it, is bare knuckle better than the UFC? I mean, that's not possible to discuss. You can say if you like it better, 100% possible to discuss. And when we're arguing with people on Twitter and Facebook and wherever we argue with people, if we shift it to, I like this fighter better, I like this football team better, I like this singer better, I liked this movie better, my personal taste, I prefer this, all day long we can do that. Some of the weird conflict we get into is when we just start arguing with another person about who's better, Conor McGregor or whomever, right? people send me saying really nice things. It's crazy how awesome your breakdowns are. Never knew until recently about your start as a rock music artist. I always thought that you looked kind of like a music artist. Thanks for the kind words, man. Really. Yeah, I used to sing in a rock band for many years, and then I had my first pro MMA fight 10 days before my 39th birthday. But I've done martial arts all my life. Where were we? I do not mind getting off topic at all. I love going down rabbit holes. I love changing gears. Again, that's really part of the cool aspect of just being free to do whatever you want. Again, my business is very good, and I'm very lucky. I don't have to do this in any way to create anything, and that freedom for me is amazing. But so what am I actually kind of saying other than now I'm explaining, and digging into it, because I think people find this useful. If you find yourself arguing with somebody about something, are you even having the same conversation? Often no. And if two people argue about really extreme things, which football team is better or which fighter is better, that shouldn't get you too upset, because these are pleasant distractions. These are hobbies and things we can love. But you start talking about the president of the United States or potential people trying to be that role or similar in any other country, people can get pretty upset. But the really valuable thing is to remember all of the information that person has been consuming or prioritizing or seeing or has been sent to them is the opposite of yours. And if you find yourself going, well, that means they're wrong and they're an idiot and they're being brainwashed, if you can take the empathy to kind of go back a little bit, you go, well, wait a second, we're part of the same system. Yeah, my news is better than their news, but ultimately we're all part of the same soup. So wait a second, if they're getting bad stuff, does that mean 100% of everything I get, I know to be true, and 100% of everything they get is stupid? It's probably not the case. We're probably both being tricked inadvertently through information, right? Oh, look, we got another comment. Because so sorry to interrupt. You did not interrupt. I chose to click on comments, and I'll do that often. Please leave any kind of comment. Also, any questions. I'm going to hang out 30, 40 minutes every Thursday. Having said that, next Thursday, I'm doing some, what would you call it? Fight coordinating on a film shoot. I got a lot of cool, fun things I get to do. That one I'll tell you about in a month or two when I'm allowed to talk about it. But Thursday, I'll be doing that. So next Thursday, I won't be here. But typically 30, 40 minutes. Some of it is like people pop me a question and I go down a rabbit hole. And I really love doing that. But so we're dealing with personal taste. Is Bareknuckle Boxing better than the UFC? Is chocolate better than peanut butter? In a lot of cases, we don't have the same information. We don't have the same perspective. Our understanding of what's good or better, or the better fighter or the better football team or whatever, is processed through the filter of our life experience. And in most cases, again, if you're learning about martial arts through a television program, say the UFC or Golden Boy Boxing or whatever, PFL, whatever it is, that's a television program. It has other priorities. Its primary priorities are to sell you things, the next fight, the t-shirts, whatever, and to sell you information and to tell you what to think. That's what it is. It's a television program. It's marketing. PFL, UFC, One, Bareknuckle, any of these companies, these are media companies that are built around the combat sports. These are not independent sports organizations telling you the truth. They're selling you stuff, and that stuff they're selling you is information, belief systems, an understanding of what something is. So if you can get yourself out of that, in the last maybe 5 to even back 2017, 2018, 2019, I started turning off all broadcasts. I consume martial arts pretty much nonstop, and they listen to almost none of it. And that 7-8 year process has allowed me to see it different in a different language. It's English, that language, but the verbiage that I'm able to see it through and the way I'm able to think about it. We think in words, right? We think in words. Think of a concept currently, right now, everybody stop. Think of a concept in your brain without using words. Think of some idea or object or something, but do not use words to do it. Go. You can't do it, right? Thought happens, our interpretation of thought happens in the language of your your primary language. Some people are able to think in multiple languages, but and then even if you could think of it, you can't describe it, right? Because you don't have the words. It's we think in words. The words that we have access to are the words we've been told about the subject. So if you're watching Golden Boy Boxing and that's all the boxing you watch, you think about things the way they tell you to think about them. You know, you'll view Canelo in a particular light using the language of the broadcast. The UFC, for example, this is why I'm actually watching it much less, including with the sound on. It's just so much repetition. And I don't just mean, and this, I work in fight broadcasting. That's what bought my house, right? That's how I pay for my family, is I work in broadcasting and analysis around fighting. So I see it a little, different way than somebody who doesn't do that. But now when I see a broadcast, it opens on the wide shot, and then we're in New York, so we're going to go to the Statue of Liberty, or we're going to go to the cabs going real fast. Oh, it's in Brazil. We're going to go to Christ the Redeemer on the mountain. We're going to set up an establishing shot. Then we're going to go wide into the thing. Welcome, guys. We got an unbelievable fight tonight. 2 epic warriors and a #1 contender. We're going to give you the message. Then we're going to go to the wide shot of the 3 guys, or the 2 men, or a woman and a man, or whomever standing there. And our main event tonight. All the same. Then the fight's going to happen. The fighter's going to come out the back. Also, the camera angle's the same shot, same. It's so much repetition. That's not for me. And from the standpoint of a broadcast, when somebody is giving you a broadcast, the reason it's like that is not because that's what's best for you. It's because it's what's easiest to manage for them, right? Nobody in a broadcast in the last 15 years has stopped for whatever reason. And I shouldn't say nobody, because I've had this conversation with a number of people. I work on Jorge Masvidal's show, and he's got a great producer. And I've had this conversation with him many times. It's like, hey, and some real production and fight TV nerds do have this conversation. So please accept my apology. I was speaking out of turn when I said nobody talks about this. But rarely do people go, which of the things that we do, because we've always done them, is best for the audience? It's easy for us. We can make it. We create a rundown. All of the ways you're presented with television fighting, and that goes for the Oscars, and that also goes for a talk show on TV, is a regimented structure created to make the life of the producers and the camera people and whoever better. It's not been created because that's what's the best experience for you, right? Now, to do that, the UFC in particular, but this is fair to say about, PFL or Bellator 1, Golden Boy, any of them, this repetition just gets to me after a while. Suddenly you're like, wait a second, it's ritualistic. I'll tell you, if we could find the guy who came up with the idea of calling that, we're going to take some of the attributes of both people, we're going to line them up with a shot of each of their faces or them in a fighting pose, and we're going to have some stats, reach, and a few. We're going to call it the tail of the tape. 1942, whenever the fuck this guy came up with that, whoever came up with it. If you travel back in time and you said, that idea is still going to be used in every single broadcast, nearly every single broadcast in 2025 and beyond, that guy would have fallen dead right there, right? Why is it called the tail of the tape? Ritual, right? Dogma, like this is what we do because this is what we've always done it. Some crazy kid would come along. Thomas is the producer at Game Bread, Dean Toole and Jorge Masvidal's show, and he's a great producer. And I work with a lot of great producers, and they are often willing to do something different. It's just so much of this is so deeply ingrained. The moment Joe started doing fight companions, and I know Joe is an outlier, and Joe is one of one, and Joe is rare and special, and like him or not, I'm sure you would agree, even for the rare person who doesn't like him. But when Joe came along and started doing fight companions that were simultaneously done with the fights, and more people would watch that than watching an expensive broadcast with a team of 80 people or whatever's happening, that should have been a signal. Wait a second, something else works better than this. And that something was a bunch of guys smoking weed watching fights. Now, it doesn't mean the Bellator should start tomorrow. Their broadcast should be a bunch of people smoking weed and watching fights. But it is an indication that, wait a second, you know that thing we've been doing for so long? How long is too long? What if we changed it 10 years ago? Would it have been better? Because if so, it's better to do it now. Anyways, most people are not going to do that. But this repetition over and over. And then we as consumers sort of get taught, the thing happened, we're going to have one of 4 or 5 conversations. Where does this guy stand in the greatest of all time? Who's the greatest? Is this guy the greatest? Oh, well, I just remember I do still work for some mainstream television. My friend and I were on TSN, which is like ESPN in Canada. And I still do some work for them and I love them. They're wonderful people. And we were talking about the UFC and we had a long conversation and he was just hell-bent on telling me, he's a good friend and good guy, hell-bent on telling me that Charles Oliveira, this is when Charles was champion, is the greatest lightweight of all time. And now it's not weird to most of these people that they're just going to have the exact same conversation now in whatever studio they're in about Makhachev, right? And it could be now over and over and over. We're going to have this conversation. Is this guy the greatest of all time? Where does this guy measure up? If you want to have that conversation every 18 months with a new person for the rest of your life, you're welcome to it. But I ain't going to do that. I ain't going to do that. I'm just not, I can't. That's just crazy to me. If we're just going to so if we go to the root of it, what's happening? Well, the recency bias and excitement, and we're being sold it. We're just, this guy's the greatest, the best, the biggest hitter, the greatest, the tightest, the baddest ass, whatever, all day long. This is how much of sport, not just fighting sport, but much of sport and a lot of entertainment is presented to you. And even the people who do it, when you are hired or nurtured to be a broadcaster or an analyst or whatever, you just believe this is how you do it. And of course, I commentate a bunch of shows. I do karate combat. I do some bare knuckle. BKB in England now has been bought by BYB. I love their show. I'll talk, actually, there'll be a great example of variation. I should have put repetition and variation instead of variety. It would sound nicer, but hey, here we are. And I do Levels Fight League, which I've talked about a lot. It's a wonderful MMA show in Amsterdam. It happens in this little cool venue. It's like a fight club, but it's super high quality and high. It's a great show. And I'm going to mention it a bunch of times. October 27th, I'll share this. But if you get a second, if it remembers in your head, October 27th, they're doing a one-night tournament. It's such a great show. And Karate Combat, Jorge and Dean Toole, they have Game Bread. That's really cool and innovative. So I commentate a bunch of shows. And we still do some of these things. Of course, we do some of these things. But what you're hoping to do is change the language. Every punch with the right hand is not a big right hand. Oh my God, he's dishing out some ground and pound. It's all over. Wow, we got a new contender. I just can't do that as a creative, but also as a consumer. That's why I had to start turning it off. It's the same thing over and over again. So I've got some comments, maybe some questions. Let's take a look. Well, we got a couple of things. Mighty Joe. One is like the anti-UFC when it comes to Showbiz presentation. What's your thoughts about them? So I haven't had the sound on there either, but I do like the only way that anybody is going to do anything. And I have this conversation with friends of mine that work in some of the big one. I've had this conversation. I have very close friends that work in PFL and Bellator. And we talk all the time. It's like the more it becomes, like Budweiser is a big beer, or, O. Henry is a big chocolate bar. If you're going to make a similar O. Henry or a similar beer and you're going to present it the same and package it similar, you're fucked. You're absolutely fucked. And this goes again, this is my real jam, how does this apply to any of us? If you are imitating somebody that maybe you have a podcast or maybe you have a business, if you're imitating somebody else that's bigger, it will not be the answer to how to be an individual, to how to create something. Innovation is the answer, right? Innovation in some way. And in the end, that's kind of why I'm so into karate combat. BYB, I mentioned, they have a triangle. It's called, they have a triangle ring, and it's really cool. It's really, really cool. The Trigon, they call it. And it's really cool, and it changes things, right? Jorge and Dean and their team just taking the gloves back off. Doesn't sound like much. We love MMA. We love, all of the different elements and the different ways one can fight mixed martial arts. Take the gloves off, and you're like, okay, well, you've got the element of bare knuckle boxing. Changes the grappling too, changes the grappling extensively, creates a more visceral, intense kind of flavor. These variations are what I'm super into now. I can't, am I going to watch Sugar Sean's fight? Yeah, of course I am. Right. And am I going to enjoy it? I'm going to probably be, I'm going to watch the fight closely, but I'm going to listen to some music or do something else, because I don't want to just be indoctrinated with the sales message of a corporation that sells stuff. Right. And that choice, if you can make that choice, and I'm not dogging the UFC or, the Oscars or whatever, the NFL, whatever else I'm referencing. But if you can make the choice in your entertainment to not be sold constantly. The world we're in, everybody's selling you something, and they're overselling it to you, which is why in the end, why are we only talking about, is this guy the greatest ever? Because that's all that matters. Being just, Bilal Muhammad is a brilliant martial artist and a wonderful fighter, and I enjoy watching him fight. I really enjoy watching him fight. I don't know what number welterweight champion he is. Is it 18? Is it 21? I don't know how many there have been. Watching him express combat is going to be a joy as long as he does it. How he ranks up to the rest of them, what's his legacy, what's his place in the lightweight, I don't give a shit about any of that. But that's what they're selling, who's his greatest rivalries, like that's what they're selling us. And all of those things are just, if you love just straight up fighting, for me, all of those things are distractions from it. They can also enhance it. For a lot of people, they can, but once it becomes more about that stuff and less about the fighting, and I've done bits and pieces of work for some of these bigger companies, and I will again, although I'm a bit of a weirdo, and I do work really well with other creative people, but I don't like big companies. I don't like having 6 bosses, and I don't like, having a language that you have to use. The UFC, again, not picking on them, this is almost certainly true of Showtime Boxing and definitely true of the NBA and the NFL and whatever. And the WWE, which, very much, I have lots of friends who've worked in that business. There's a language you have to use and a language you don't use. There's certain things you talk about and there's certain things you don't talk about. I would screw that up constantly, right? Like I'm going to screw that up constantly. If I work for very large companies with lots of bosses, I'm going to be the guy who fucks all that up pretty bad. So you find how and where you fit in to be able to do your thing. We live, when I was talking about this at the beginning, it's crazy what kind of world we're living in. I swear to you, and I like to talk about these things. I like to encourage this kind of thing. Every single person watching that, a couple hundred people watching this. I don't know where you're watching it or what the number is on that platform, but combined, there's a couple hundred. And thank you for hanging with me, which is so cool. Whatever it is you're really into, you can literally get paid to do that thing now, because the world that we live in allows you to do that. Whether you make something and buy something and resell it, you create something and sell it on Etsy and eBay and these things, or whether you create content around something that'll then promote your thing. It's all there. It can all be done. I'm in my 50s. I didn't know a fucking thing about any of this stuff when my job dissolved in 2017. I had a television job with a makeup artist that would touch you up. I had 2 camera guys, an editor, lighting people, a wardrobe, like all of those things. I didn't know how to edit. I learned how to edit on this iPad. Actually, it was an older one, from a 9-year-old girl on YouTube that was like, this is how you edit. And I was like, if this kid can edit, I can edit. We can all learn all these things. It's all there for us. So we don't have to end up. You can now find what's going to work right for you. For me, it is having lots of partnerships with companies like Karate Combat and Bruce Lee's family and stuff, lots of partnerships where I can make stuff with them. And as a partner, we work together creatively, and I get to say and do weird shit that I like, and I get to wear my hair weird if I want. And And, you know, at Karate Combat, I wear makeup, and crazy outfits and stuff. This is fun. So I found how to shoehorn, and I make way more money than I ever would have thought possible doing it myself. And then I hire my friends when I do need to edit bigger things. It's amazing, right? It's unbelievable. It's crazy. I'm so happy and I'm so thankful. But I really, and I know I detoured here, but I really want to encourage people, if there's something you love doing, not only is that when you get to this point, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it all like is a thing now, and has been for some years, but the process of it is really fun too. You know, if you watch a lot of Netflix, which if you love Netflix and that's your jam, maybe you can also build something around watching a lot of Netflix. That's a real job. You could build a YouTube channel or whatever. Or if you play a lot of video games, if you're doing those things too much, carve out an hour of that and work on building something. It can totally be done. I'm going to take a couple questions. Karate Combat is a great fit. Thanks, man. Do you feel yourself being biased unintentionally when you commentate fights? That's a great question. That's a really great question. So we'll come back to, you know, the variation of some of these modern martial arts and modern martial arts shows after this. Somebody please remind me. I'm a little bit scatterbrained. Often when I get really like excited about something, I'll go a little weird, a little left field. Do you find yourself being biased unintentionally when you commentate fights? Really great question. So commentating is in and of itself. I changed how I did it over the last 5, 6, 7 years. It was a purposeful thing. I realized that the primary way that 99% of people commentate, and myself was included, is we see something and then it triggers one of 3 or 4 things that we practice to say. Big right hand, heavy right hand, big, there's a left hook, you know, like, and we do that. And that is a natural mechanism. You see, then something triggers, and then you say. Right. And again, going back to how television and other types of streaming and presentation work, that works really great for your boss in your ear, because they like to say the old way was stay with the action. Right. And the ideal scenario, I've got a couple of really good friends that I work with, John Ramdeen. Mike Goldberg is a good friend, and I've worked with him on a BYB show. And Sean Wheelock, who's a great commentator, who I've actually never worked with in a booth, but we're friends, and he's a mentor, and as is Goldberg and as is Ramdeen. And I've worked with a lot of great. I do play-by-play. Brandon Schaub's my partner, but when we do it, it works. But the ideal for me is a Goldberg or a Sean, or these guys create a lot of structure, and then the analyst should be free to color outside the lines a little bit. And so I was like, okay, well, that's my role. And I really thought about this consciously. It worried me, right? 2016, 2017, Dominic Cruz had become a commentator. He's very good. And then there was starting to be a few more. Kenny Florian was back then, Brian Stan. They were really good, really good. And then, very good. And I started to realize, well, wait a second. If what these guys are doing, and what we were all doing was that, see something, say one of the 4 or 5 things you say, and then the next thing happens and say that, oh man, he's dishing out some ground and pound. It's all raw, crazy, man. Like, and no hate, no this. I was doing it too. We were all doing it. But I was like, well, wait a second. That is somewhat reproducible and learnable, you know. And so what that means was, Mike Goldberg, I love you, man. What that means was you could teach a lot of fighters to do it, and that has seemed to be true. If you're doing that thing, that could be learned. Intelligent, well-spoken fighters. Now, if you're gonna take some intelligent, well-spoken fighters, there's a lot of them. Some of them have 1 million followers. Some of them are really handsome. Some of them are beautiful, aesthetically, man, woman, you use whatever words you want. Some of them are very famous. Why would you hire me if I'm going to do the exact same thing as Paige Van Zandt? Paige is gorgeous. She's got millions of followers, and she's a recognizable UFC BK, or I'm just using an example. Somebody, I wouldn't hire me if I'm going to do the same job as somebody with two world titles and 5 million followers. Why would you get me? And around 2017, it was part of my motivation when I turned it all off and started to develop just my own way to do it, and my own way to see it, and my own way to experience it, which is much more joyful for me anyways. But I looked at it and I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. If out of 100 fighters, there's 13 of them who can do this really well. Out of 400 fighters, and then as they retire, they all want that job, and they can all do that job in the way it's being done. It's a very reproducible gig. You see other people do it. You say the things, then the thing happens. Go to camera 2, stand there on the shot. Like, it's a very learnable process. So then I was like, I have to be able to do it in my own way. And what would that be? I don't really know. So I started to research, what is the process? What is the mental process and systems that happen when somebody does freestyle rap, like a rap battle, or improv comedy, or jazz improvisation. I started to look at the actual mechanisms, how they train that, how they practice that, so that instead of me doing it procedurally the same way that it is done mostly and taught, and where that repetition that I no longer enjoy at all, it would be much more free flowing. And now, particularly Karate Combat, I have a number of bosses, producers and stuff, and Awesome, President Awesome, is the president? Yeah, President Awesome. Of course he's the president, right? He's a very big believer in what I do, and a very big enthusiast, and it's very, very complimentary. And others that I work with on that show, and they're like, what you do is only you, like nobody else does it. And then they ask me, well, how do you do that? And one of the crazy things about it, when that camera finds me, and this is very different than how you first learn the first 1,000 broadcasts you do, I don't have a plan. I don't have something I'm rehearsing in my mind. I may have a loose idea. I generally have a loose idea. So I'm watching the fights in Karate Combat with the sound off. I love Josh, and I love Boss Rutan, and I love George and Big Mike. These are great people, and they're great commentators, and they do a wonderful job. But if I hear what they're saying, it will shape my thoughts, and it'll shape what I see. So I turn them off, and then I take it in. Often I'll listen to either like classical music or binaural beats that people listen to the study, and I'll feel the fight, and I'll feel it not in words, in feeling and flow. And then some concepts will shape me, like, it'll rarely be, oh man, it was a lot of low kicks, because low kicks, when he attacks the calf, like the first things that you would see and say and are of value, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go into sort of try to find, it's Robert Greene calls it dimensional thinking, where we're going to look outside of the ABC or the 1, 2, 3 and try to find the do, re, mi, right? That's now how it happens. And it's a joyful experience. It's stressful because the camera on a crane just kind of finds you at the side of a pit. And now you go, but 19 times out of 20 over the last couple of years, it's worked. And it's a very joyful experience to be able to express something that way and learn. And what I'm trying to do is learn something when I watch it. Not, okay, he did that, and this is why he won, and he was landing the right hand a lot, and the other guy got tired. That's all true. But you can get that anywhere, and you can get that from somebody with 10 million followers and who's incredibly handsome or beautiful and was a 3-time world champion. So, over time, I developed it in my own way, which was more enjoyable for me, and I love doing it, and it's given me this cool life, right? I did not answer your question, which was, do you find yourself being biased? So now though all that long story was in hopes of letting you know that I'm actually trying. Part of my path is to actually try to have no opinion. And that's very difficult, of course. And I do have very good friends and that are commentators and other things in other places, some I've worked with and some that are just friends. John Anik is a very good friend. He's a really good dude, like really good dude. when I was getting my O1 visa renewed, and even when I applied for it, he wrote a letter for me. Chael Sonnen wrote a letter for me. I think George St. Pierre, really nice, good. Rich Chow, who is one of my closest friends. These are wonderful people. Yeah, so what was I saying? Where was I with that? Oh yeah, so some commentators will have a conversation. They'll say, I am paid to give my opinion. And I'm like, you can be paid to give your opinion, and by all means, do it. I believe I'm paid to not have an opinion, which is difficult because we're humans and, we have personal taste, we have different perspectives, but I believe that I'm paid to attempt to override my opinion and look for what is. And maybe this will be a nice place to kind of leave today with this, exploring this idea. So I actually don't, and nobody's going to bat 100 on that. I believe a really good way to live is to, over time, actually have less and less interest in other people's opinions. Now, other people's truths, other people's emotions, and other people's the stories they want to tell you, and people want to share things with you, of course, like listen, learn, right? But just the opinion. I think this guy's the best, and I think this guy's the best. I think the market is going to this. I think that's a lot of the time, that's none of your business. Even, and maybe especially, people's opinions about you. Your own brain is actually, I'm speaking for myself, but I think I can speak for most people. Our own brains are pretty complicated, and there's a lot going on. It's sorting out your own thoughts is challenging enough. The fuck are you interested in that guy's? You don't even know, or hers. You don't even know what they're really ever thinking. And you certainly don't want to get involved in helping and shaping what they're thinking. You just kind of start to leave it alone. But when you have less and less interest in other people's opinion, over time, you start to have less and less interest in forming an opinion. And it's really powerful. It's really powerful, I swear to you, because once you remove, or you try to resist forming an opinion, you're able to see more clearly what some people call what is. What is that? What are we looking at? What is this really? As soon as I have an opinion about it, now I'm inadvertently taking the things I learned in my life and my life experience, which are a tiny sliver of actual what is possible to know about the thing that we're looking at, or the event, or the story. And we're taking a opinion is being formed based on what I've been exposed to, which in the grand scheme of things is not much, right? I've studied martial arts going on 50 years. And what I've learned is I know very little about it, right? That's what 4+ decades of studying, dedicating my life to studying something reveals how much there is that I do not know. Right? How little I really know, how much there is yet to know. And that's an incredibly exciting thing. But that happens more when you try not to have an opinion. Now, I keep stressing try, because the trying is the important part, because you will fail. You will form opinions. That is human nature. But in the attempt, in the quest to not form it, and the resisting the urge to form it, right? That's the key to this. Why do we form opinions? Because we don't like uncertainty. We don't form opinions because we know. We don't form opinions about the world because we know everything. We form it because we don't, right? And humans have this very fragile need to know what's going on, but we never do. If the second you form a strong opinion about something, using only the information you have, you'll begin to look for ways to make that so, which will then make you feel more comfortable and less anxious, right? And that's why we do it. If you can resist the fragile human urge to form an opinion, as long as humanly possible. I referenced Robert Greene earlier. Now I'm remembering this idea. Some of it comes from his book, Mastery, which I've mentioned to many, many people, and I love it. He calls it, there's a name for this state. They say Einstein stayed in this state. Negative capability. Keats was a poet, and he coined the term negative capability to mean the ability to resist the fragile knee-jerk human reaction of forming an opinion, as long as possible, to think more deeply about things and gather more information. right? And it's a beautiful thing, and it's a quest, and it's a practice, and it's an ongoing thing, and you can only do it a tiny bit at first, then you can do it a little bit more, and then you'll be good at it for a week, and then you're bad at it for a year. But it's part of life. It's part of trying to become a better person. It's part of trying to figure out what we're doing here. What are we doing here? What is any of this, right? We're probably trying to actualize ourselves to our potential. That's as best as I can figure. The point of all this, right, of life, is to try to reach, become your potentialities. And so this is a key way to do it in growth, is to resist the urge to find an opinion. Now, having said that, to simply answer your question, yeah, you do find yourself being biased unintentionally when you commentate fights. If you say you do not, that is also a bias, right? That is a bias wanting to believe that. Of course you do. All people are almost always biased towards what they know, what they've heard, what they believe, what they're afraid of, away from pain, towards pleasure and safety. This is human nature. All people are biased. Your goal is to be as little biased as possible, or to identify your own bias, to be able to look and go, don't deny that you're biased, or I'm going to be unbiased. That's all nonsense. Bias is part of human nature. Observe yourself doing it, see how you might do it less, and move on. And that is an ongoing part of life. And then the more you do that, the more you begin the quest of overriding your own urge to form an opinion long enough that you can gain more information. Can't do it forever. Eventually you're going to have an opinion. Eventually you're going to have a belief, but you delay it so that you can gain more information. What a fun hang. And, in the end, we started with looking at my thumbnail, which says bare knuckle greater than UFC, which in the beginning, if you just joined me, I talked about these things are used purposefully to tickle algorithms and to engage people and stuff. So always be aware. Don't ever let yourself get outraged where somebody tried to harvest your outrage to get clicks and likes and engagement, right? I'm going to come back to that often. It's an important thing in life. So that was the beginning. What I really am starting to like, again, it is 100% personal taste, is the variety. That's what now gets me jazzed, right? Not another big broadcast on a big network with the big things and the best and the greatest. And that's all messaging, right? Is whoever is is Bilal Muhammad the best welterweight in the world? Yeah, he might be. Actually, I'm going to go on a weird tangent right now. When we are comparing Big Alex, or Bilal, or one of these people, and we're like, they're the best in the world. They're actually not currently the best in the world. They were the best in the world on that night when fully prepared. They had peak performance, focused, whatever. Right now Bilal is probably very in shape, because I got a feeling that's kind of how he lives. And Pereira probably too. These are terrible examples, Robin Black. But many of them were the best in that moment on that night. And we'll find out again in 16 weeks after they've done 10 weeks of, can they get themselves to that moment of superior performance again? Because superior performance that happens on the night when you win the title or you have the biggest moment of your life, that's a one-time, that's a moment in time. That doesn't reflect you as the individual. That is not you. You are not that. That was a performance. That was a moment. And Matt Brown actually told me this once. I was years ago, 2012, 2013, I was at Fight Network, and I was on the phone with him in a podcast environment. And I said, Matt, you're one of the mentally toughest guys in fighting. And he goes, whoa. Because I'm not one of the mentally toughest guys. He said, when I am mentally tough, it is a consequence, I'm paraphrasing, of the work. He goes, if I think I'm mentally tough, and somehow that stops me from doing the work, or I do the work less, it's a type of overconfidence. But that overconfidence, Matt Brown on the night where I'm admiring his mental toughness, is a result of the hard work and the preparation. And so Bilal Muhammad, when he wins on that night, that is the result of all the preparation. 10 weeks later, he's not in fight shape. He's one of the great fighters in the world. But what we want to know is on the night, 16 weeks in the future, where is he today? And to me, that's the, and so even some of these conversations become, just not real. Is Conor McGregor the greatest? Whatever. Conor McGregor is currently a guy who healed an injury, gained a lot of weight, has had other things. He's a different man. Could he become the guy who knocked out Addie Alvarez? Yes, it would be the consequence of his work and preparation to do so. And then he would only be that night. And 5 weeks later, he'd be at the Black Forge Inn having proper 12 and his dark beer. And he would be 81% or 78% as capable as he was on that night. Today, he's not that. With the preparation, the preparation could reflect that. And then weeks later, he would be some version of that, right? So this is real life, right? So the conversations we have about the best and whatever, these are simple moments in time. And I love that shit. I love thinking about it that way. I love seeing it that way. I love learning about life by looking at it this way. Anyways, so that's what I do. That's what I get to do. And that's what I did here today, hanging out with you guys. I try to end always on something positive. This whole vibe, I think, today has been pretty positive, and not that anyone should try to be positive 100% of the time. That's probably not healthy. But I'm living in some years of very good vibes right now, and I'm very grateful. But I just want to leave, if we're taking a moment to positivity at the end, I want to leave you with this. Please turn off all notifications on your phone forever. Your life will improve immediately. I promise you. And you think you can't because of some work thing or whatever, turn them all off. Your life will get better. Take probably 30 days till you really will notice it. And then you'll be like, oh, the background radiation of my anxiety seems to have diminished dramatically. And the other thing is, I've learned this myself the hard way. I always thought more work was better, and I believed it. And like my grit and my drive and my determination has always been a part of something I really was proud of. But I've really started to learn, if I've got an 8-hour day, taking 90 minutes to like walk in nature and like not work makes the other 6.5 hours more productive than the 8 would have been had I not done that. Better quality work, happier, life is generally better. This is not the message that the world is giving you right now, but I swear to you, if you take some time off of the grind and the drive and the need and the swirling thoughts and the to-do list and the emails and this fucking thing, your life will improve. I swear to you. But turn them all off. Every notification, you don't need them. You can live without them. The shit won't fall apart. Your life will get better. I swear to you. Also, drink more water. Life will get better there too. This has been so fun. And my in-laws are here in my house, and I'm going to hang out with my family. But I'm going to be back Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Because like I said, next week I'm the fight coordinator on a shoot. I'll tell you about it in a month or two when I'm allowed. Next Thursday. So next Tuesday I'm doing a live. But thank you. Please do all the stuff and subscribe and stuff. And but don't put notifications. Just turn them all off. Unless they can come into your phone, tell you this thing is happening, but not shake your phone, then it's cool. Oh, one more thing. If you go to my Instagram, it's Robin Black Martial Arts. In the bio, there's a link. And in that link, I'm doing, I call it daily-ish, but it's really probably 3 times a week. I'm writing like a Good Vibes newsletter, and it goes straight to your email. It will always be free. I'll never ask for anything. It's strictly because I really love being able to do that. So if you please go to my Instagram, at Robin Black Martial Arts, go in the bio. There's a link. If you sign up for my daily thing, I'll email you every few days, something good. Thank you guys so much. Oh, wait, one more comment. Maybe it's a question. This is probably referencing somebody else. If it's me, that's very kind of you. If we're talking about somebody I mentioned, thank you for watching. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you also, if I may ask for one other thing, if you think of it, go on my Twitter and leave me a question, because my recorded ones is live, and if you're watching it after, welcome and thanks for watching. But my recorded ones, mostly I'm just answering questions in my own weird, odd, meandering way. But if you could leave me some questions or leave them here, just leave them here wherever we are, leave them in the thing. Any question, I would really value it. Thank you guys so much. It's a delight to be able to do this. It's a real gift. And I really do like value it and appreciate it. And I love it. And thank you so much. Much love. Until next time, enjoy the hostilities.